Barack Obama just gave his approval for the Islamic government of Turkey to attack the only liberal Muslims in the region, our allies in Kurdistan. It's a disgrace. It shows what we've all come to learn, that under Barack Obama, it is more dangerous to be a so-called friend of the United States than to be America's enemy. Ask Ukraine if you doubt that. Let me tell you a bit more about the Kurds before I tell you what Obama and Turkey just did to them. I mean, there aren't a lot of good guys in the world these days, and in the Middle East, that list dwindles down pretty close to zero. There's Israel, a liberal democracy, but that's a pretty tiny country, just a sliver of land and 8 million people. The rest of the place is violent, either in revolution or racked by terrorist attacks or, full-out rebellions. Of course, the worst of it is the Islamic State, which is pretty much a Nazi state, beheading people by the thousand, rape, slavery for women, throwing gays off the top of buildings, teaching children to be murderers too. I'm glad that Canada has 6 CF-18 jets out there attacking the Islamic State, and we've got some refueling planes and crew. I'm proud of that, but don't kid yourselves. That's not going to defeat the Islamic State. Neither is the token U.S. presence, and neither apparently can Iraq's official army either. You know who is on the ground in Iraq, though, not only fighting the Islamic State, but taking back land with boots on the ground, as they say? Iran is. Seriously, the Islamic Republic of Iran, Barack Obama's new best friends. With Obama's permission, their troops are operating in Iraq, gobbling that country up. Here's a picture of a senior Iranian commander, Qasem Soleimani, conferring at leisure with his troops on the ground in Iraq. He's occupying it. Do we have any friends in that whole region, any allies, anyone willing to fight other than Iran? Well, yes, the Kurds. Now, being Kurdish is an ethnicity, it's not a religion, although most Kurds are in fact Muslim. Some are a more obscure religion called the Yazidis, but here's my point. The Kurds are pretty much the only moderate people in the region. They live in northern Iraq and Syria and Turkey. They don't have a country of their own, but in the mess of Iraq in the past few years, they've carved out a de facto country called Kurdistan. And as you can see by these pictures, it's not a pile of rubble like much of Syria, Iraq. It's actually modern. Big cities like Sulaymaniyah, 1.6 million people. That's bigger than Calgary. It's as big as Vancouver. The Kurdish city of Erbil is almost as big. Kirkuk is almost 1 million people. So these are real cities in a real mini country that's modern and peaceful and liberal in a region that has precious little of those things. The whole region hates the Kurds. Turkey hates the Kurds because they're afraid that a future Kurdistan as a country would take some territory that Turkey currently controls, where there's a lot of ethnic Kurds. So Turkey has been vicious in repressing Kurds, not just Kurdish rebel groups like the PKK, but Kurdish political activists too. The Islamic State terrorists, they hate the Kurds too, of course, even though they're largely fellow Muslims. But look at this. Remember the Islamic State assault on the city of Kobani, right near the Turkish border? It was so brutal. Islamic State Nazis butchering their way through the city, bombing it to rubble, going door to door, killing Kurds like the Nazis rolling through Warsaw's ghetto. Well, Kobani is literally within sight of the Turkish border. And the Turkish army was massed on the border. They literally stood and watched while the Islamic State killed the Kurds. Of course they did, because Turkey actually hates Kurds more than they oppose the Islamic State terrorists. In fact, there are videos out there of Turkish soldiers socializing with Islamic State terrorists because they both hate Kurds. Well, thank God for the Kurds, I say. You've probably seen pictures of beautiful Kurdish women fighting in their militias called the YPG or the Peshmerga, killing the Islamic State terrorists, doing the job that the West won't do. And the first thing you notice is that they're women often. And they're allowed out of the house by their men. They don't have to wear a burqa or a niqab. They are free women. They're even allowed to hold a gun. That sort of tells you something about the Kurds, doesn't it? It tells me almost everything I need to know. They're not fascist misogynists like the Islamic State or Iran or the Saudis. If only every Muslim country was as liberal as the Kurdish proto-state. So naturally Turkey hates them. This is why Turkey has refused to let the United States use the U.S. NATO base, the Air Force base in Incirlik, Turkey, to attack the Islamic State. Seriously, Turkey is a member of NATO. So the United States protects Turkey. And the U.S. Air Force base in Incirlik, Turkey pumps billions of dollars into the Turkish economy, in addition to obviously the protection that the U.S. military gives Turkey. But Turkey refuses to let the U.S. use their own base to attack terrorists. Can you believe it? Well, I can, because Turkey is run by Recep Erdogan, an Islamist president for life. Well, last week, Barack Obama finally persuaded Erdogan to let the U.S. use the U.S. base in Turkey. But at the same exact moment, Turkey launched brutal airstrikes against Kurdish soldiers for the first time in years. The quid pro quo is obvious. Obama sacrificed the Kurds, the only Western-oriented, liberal, peaceful fighting force, to have the right to do what he had the right to do anyways, use a U.S. Air Force base. Obama is the world's worst negotiator. I mean, Russia and Iran and China know all that, but now the Turks and the Kurds do too. But this isn't just bad negotiating. It's about how Obama, time after time, sides with Islamic extremists against liberal Democrats. He chose Turkey's Erdogan over the liberal Kurds, just like he chose Iran's Ayatollahs against Iranian Democrats and its peaceful neighbors, including Israel. Barack Obama will be gone in 18 months, but in the meantime, thousands will die as he throws our allies to the wolves, as he has done to the Kurds. For TheRebel.Media, I'm Ezra Levan.